Hi, I'm SpriteGuard, and today I wanted to talk a little bit more about how I approach music and a little bit more about some of the other instruments that I have in my collection, because even though I have a lot of jaw harps, I actually have a lot of other instruments as well. And most of all, I want to talk about this one, which is an overtone flute. It is a fipple flute. You can see right there, it's got the hole like a recorder so that you don't have to have a really good embouchure to play it. And that's going to be really relevant to what we're talking about today. And the other thing about this is that it has no holes, except for the obligatory hole at the bottom. And the way that you play it is you can cover and uncover this hole, and that will let you play overtones of the main very low note that this very long pipe plays. And so you have a pretty limited range of notes to work with. And that is actually something that is really appealing to me about this instrument. It uses the overtone series, which is also how you make melodic sounds on the jaw harp. The idea is that most sounds are composed of these stacked overtones, and you can select certain overtones to create kind of secondary pitches. And in the case of this one, you overblow it, much like you would overblow a flute to get higher octaves, but you can actually overblow it to get a much wider range of notes. And I'm covering and uncovering the end here because there's a little bit of a trick with this is the higher up an overtone series you go, the closer together the notes are melodically. And so what you can do is you can close the end of the hole to make it as if the fundamental note, the lowest note, was an octave lower than it usually is. But you only get half as many overtones. And so by alternating covering and uncovering the bottom, you can get a series of overtones that is as if you were always playing from that lowest fundamental. The higher up you go on the overtone series, the more notes you get to play around with, and so that gives you a way of just having a few extra notes to play with. But that's not really why I'm making this video. The real reason I'm making this video is because I want to talk about how I approach making music in general. Because it's very different from a lot of the people around me. It's very different from the way that I was brought up understanding music. And I think it's a very fun way to approach music that people who have really had difficulty with kind of the more conventional approaches to music might be interested in. Because when I was young, when I was learning music as a kid, I was very drawn to music, but I struggled with it a lot because kind of the way that I was taught to make music as a child was you do things exactly right. The song is written in a particular way, and your job is to learn how to play the notes just right, and you as the player have no agency. And maybe if you've been playing for many, many years, then one day you'll be good enough that you can have some agency. But as a kid, having a lack of agency was a big problem. And so I never really developed the discipline to push through that, and I never really got good at any instrument. And for a long time, I thought that not being good at any instrument just meant that I was no good at music and I shouldn't play music, but I kept being drawn to it. I kept wanting to play music, even though I didn't have the discipline to play music in the way that I had been taught was the right way to play music. And so I ended up kind of stumbling on a different way of making music that is more like play. It's more like how I approach video games. It's more like how I approach toys. Less from a perspective of doing things right and getting good, and more from a perspective of trying things that seem cool and seeing what I can do. And so I still practice, I still improve, because I want to be able to do more different things and try out more different things. But instead of practicing in service of becoming better at music in order to do things right, I'm playing first, and the playing is bringing out my desire to practice in order to try out the things that I want to do playfully. So it's much more like playing around on a playground, playing around with a toy, and this toy it happens to make music rather than, tossing it up in the air or spinning it around on your fingers. Although I play with that kind of toy as well. And so I picked this thing up, and this is actually something that I've wanted to have for many, many years, and I only just recently got it. But I remember one of the first videos that I saw on YouTube was of somebody playing an overtone flute extremely well. A musician called Nadi Shana, who is a multi-instrumentalist who has a really, really interesting musical style that plays a lot with overtones. And he has invented instruments, and he's a really interesting guy. Nadi Shana. I'll probably put a link in the description. But I always wanted one of these. I tried making my own. I offered to pay somebody to make one, but none of that panned out. And then one day recently, I realized that I'm an adult now, and I have my own income, and I can just buy things on Etsy. And so I bought this, and I'm very happy to have it. And so, I haven't had it for very long, and so I'm still trying to figure out the right breath pressure, the right breath speed, to make the kinds of sounds that I want to play. But I'm not approaching it from the point of view of, I have to play exactly these sounds. I'm instead approaching it from, okay, what can I do? What notes am I able to play? Am I able to go up and down scales? Well, I'm having a hard time hitting the higher notes. Maybe I can get better at that. That's difficult. Maybe I can play around with that more. What else can I do? I can play around. I can move up and down. I can open and close the bottom in different patterns. I'm missing a lot of notes. I'm not doing things well, and that doesn't matter because I'm not here to perform. I'm not here to do things right. I'm here to play around. It's like you jump for the monkey bars, and sometimes you miss and sometimes you grab them, and it doesn't matter because the point is not to do things right. The point is to do things. And that has been really important to a lot of aspects of my life. That's been a way that I've been trying to approach my life more and more over the last few years, is focus less and less on doing things right and focus more on doing things freely. That's actually how I started to make my video game Infinite Ritual, is I stopped trying to make a good game. I stopped trying to make a game properly. and I started just seeing what I could do in the context of trying to make a game. Now, I actually have a pretty sizable musical instrument collection. This one is another favorite of mine. It is a kalimba. When I was younger, when I was in college, I learned to play an instrument called an mbira, and I still have my mbira, but it is a little too special for the way that I'm playing music now. The mbira is a sacred instrument that is played in religious rituals, and it is for a religion that I am not part of, and I don't feel comfortable playing it. This is an instrument inspired by the mbira that is very much a secular instrument. I believe I want to say it was invented by Hugh Tracy. He might have just popularized it, but it's a very different instrument. It has the notes are arranged in kind of a really distinctive way. This one's a little too quiet, and my camera's a little too not mobile for me to really show you me playing it. But you can kind of see me playing it here. And this one, I have a very distinctive way of playing on it, where I alternate fingers, and I jump my fingers around in really rhythmic ways that are really inspired by my experience playing mbira, but on a very different instrument. And so I play things like this. It can be very easy to get lost in it. It's a really kind of hypnotic way of playing where I'm not really paying attention to what notes I'm playing. I just have certain hand movements that I know sound good. I have certain places, ways of moving around the notes that I know sound good to me. And I'm not really thinking too much about, is it too repetitive? Is it going to be interesting? All I'm really interested in is, does it feel good to play? Does it sound good to me? Is it pleasant? Is it fun? And that's really the playful approach that I'm talking about, is you put aside any kind of wrong that you could possibly have. If there's any way of doing things wrong, then it's not as playful as it could be. Sometimes it's good to have some things that you're aiming for, some ways that you want to do things right. But when you're really playing around, you really want to give yourself freedom to not focus on the ways that the music is wrong, and really just focus on what feels right. Another kind of curiosity that I acquired recently is this. This is a Suzuki Andes, and it looks like a melodica, which I used to play the melodica quite a lot. Less so lately, but it was one of my favorite instruments to play for a while. But this one, instead of reeds, it has pipes. And so it has this very whistly sound to it. When I first picked this up, I thought, wow, this sounds like really cheap. This sounds like a plastic slide whistle with a keyboard on it. And yeah, it does. And that's fine. And so, I play around with it. I say, what can I do? Just messing my fingers around. Just seeing what I can accomplish. Feeling around. I'm not thinking about what I should be doing. I'm just thinking about what I can do. And yeah, I've practiced a lot. I can do probably more things than your average person off the street can do. I have more ability to express my intentions, but I didn't get those things by sitting down with a lot of discipline and being like, okay, now it's time to practice, now it's time to get good at these specific skills. I did it by sitting down and going like, okay, what would be interesting if I was better at it? What would I like to be better at doing? What would I like to do that I can't do? What's fun? What do I want to do that I can do? It's important to practice things that you are good at to maintain and improve them as well. This is another one that I really like that I picked up entirely for its sound. This is a low whistle. And I don't quite know the correct way to finger it. I think you're supposed to use more of a flat grip like this, but I was never really able to get that fluent with it. But if I use the pads of my fingers like this, it works all right. It works well enough. I love that low sound. And so I picked this one up just to be able to make that low whistle sound, that really warm, deep whistling sound that I really like the feel of it. And so I just picked it up. I didn't care about, do I know how to play it? No, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to make the sounds that I like to make. Sometimes I will try to put stuff together in Audacity. I have recorded a few songs with a mix of different instruments, mainly jaw harp because that's the instrument I'm most comfortable with. But I have put stuff together with some of my other instruments. I am limited sometimes by what key things are in. And sometimes I have to solve some interesting problems because of that. For instance, this and the overtone flute are both in D, but the kalimba is in C. And so if I want to combine them together, I have to look at, okay, well, if I'm playing in the key of D, then I'm not allowed to use C, and I'm not allowed to use F. So what does that give me? Okay, that's kind of an interesting selection. We have no third. We have the D to the E, but then we skip over the F to the G. And so that right there creates some kind of interesting problems. And this is where, I got really interested in music theory for a while. And so, I don't know that much in the scheme of things, but I can look at that and go, okay, not having that third is going to be an interesting problem. But we do have, we have the fourth, we have the fifth, we have some interesting stuff. And so I can try to put something together that uses the notes that I do have. And then I can combine that with the other instruments. And usually I'm not happy with how it comes together, but I do have some songs that I've recorded in a very playful way that I was happy with. Other things I've played around with, I played around with multi-tracked vocals, just layering vocals on top of vocals. That was a lot of fun. Just trying to harmonize with myself and create loops that I was happy with. There are a lot of ways to make music, and I'm not going to say that any of them are better than any others. You may have a way that you like to make music, or you might not. Not everyone does. But it is a really amazing hobby if you want to pick it up. Even if you think, you don't have the discipline to play music in the usual sense, you can still pick up one of these instruments that are easier to play and just mess around and have fun and not worry about whether or not you're doing it right. So that is all I really have for you today. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.